Hi everybody, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We are going to do a tour and, oh, hi guys. What are you doing?
This guy's got to have a poo-poo.
He's got to go outside again. We're going to do a tour and update of the garden. Okay, let's go. Look at this. What a nice backyard. Crow is really living his best country dog life lately. I don't think he really has to go. I think he's just messing with us. Sometimes he does this when he wants to just go sit outside under the trees in the shade. He acts like he has to poo, but he doesn't really have to. Okay, in case you're wondering what shoes I'm gardening in, I'm just going to say this is a bit of an aside, but these are shoes that I bought for the trails. They're Solomon, I don't know what they're called, something cross, alpha cross. Okay, I bought these to run on trails because they're waterproof, but let me tell you, I use these the most for walking the dog when it's wet and gardening because it's so dewy out right now that any other shoes would get soaked. So they're kind of fancy gardening shoes, but they're my current fave. This is the composter. We've had this going since we moved into this house, and it's been working really well for us. So that's where we get a lot of our good compost from. And then here we are. Look how beautifully everything is coming along. So these are the new trellises that we've put up. These two that are closest to me are new this year, and the other one we built last year. And everything that we put on these trellises just grows so beautifully. And also they're just like kind of cute. Look at this. How nice is this? Okay, so we made these beds during the pandemic. When we moved into this house, we started with a garden just down on the grass. And to be honest, it was so difficult to maintain because the grass was just constantly moving in on the plants. And I spent so much time out here, on the ground, bent over, trying to pull out this grass that was constantly moving back in. And I remember there was one year where I just kind of let it go because I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. And after that, we decided, let's just build some beds, and it was been just so much better. So now I really, really, really enjoy being out here, enjoy pulling the weeds, enjoy doing the work. It's a lot easier to manage, and for me, that's just made all the difference because, I'm doing this to get wonderful food, but I'm also doing this to be outside and have a little project and enjoy my time. So that's been really, really useful for us. I think the other amazing thing about these beds is they're filled with really the best soil we could possibly find. So what we did, as you can see, these beds are quite tall, they're hip height. So they were a real pain to fill up. Kyle and I filled these beds by hand with shovels, which was a huge amount of work. It took us 2 summers to fill up these beds. And basically what it is the bottom layer, maybe a foot to a foot and a half, is all logs. So we had a bunch of logs. There were a couple trees that had to come down. So we put all logs along the bottom, and then we started putting dirt. So we went to the dump and we hauled out compost, leaf compost, and we put a big layer of leaf compost, and then we put goat manure, composted goat manure that we got from one of my students and friends who lives down the road. She has a goat farm, and she gave it to us all for free, which was fantastic. We had to shovel it in, but it was really, really great. We got a ton of that. And then every year we put either a bit of extra dirt on top. This year we put a few bags extra of manure on top. Sometimes I put leaves. Sometimes I put grass clippings, but that has been problematic in the past because sometimes those grass clippings have seeds in them, and then you're basically just like sprinkling grass seed in the bed. So I don't do that anymore, and I don't really recommend it unless it's like really well composted already. But basically the beds are full of the best material ever, and it has not only great nutrients but really great drainage because of those logs. And so this year it's been raining a ton. I actually have not watered one single time. But because all of those logs are in the bottom, it never gets too wet in the beds. So if it rains like an unprecedented amount, the water just drains through. And I think for us, that's been a real blessing this year, because I know a lot of people whose garden beds are not working that well because farming stuff is going bad, because their soil is just getting so moist and so damp. Okay, so we're gonna move on. That's why we made these beds, and I'm just so pleased and so happy with them. And they look nice, they perform really well, and I highly recommend this type of gardening. All right, so first up, the cucumbers. I've probably harvested like 50 cucumbers. I already picked them today, so you're not gonna see very many. Here's one that I missed that's still kind of growing. I'll show you all the cucumbers I have in my kitchen right now. I have never had so much success with growing cucumbers. And again, I think they're just getting tons of sun, tons of drainage, tons of water. Oh, I think there's another one in here. Yeah, there's some in here that I've missed. We got some weeds in here, but it's not too bad. Other stuff in here is parsley, basil. This basil's almost done. Celery. Look at this celery. Look at these plants. Look at this. So what I do, I don't pick the whole thing all at once. I like to pick them off the side. Like you can see on this plant, I've picked a couple off the side. And I basically just keep picking them and they keep growing. Look at this. Everybody says celery is hard to grow, and I don't know how I'm having like the best celery in the world. I'm not doing anything special, but it's just growing really, really well. And then over here, this part is kind of like the abandoned part of the bed, if I'm being honest. We've got some lettuce that's going to seed. Oh, this plant has tomatoes on it. This is a tomato plant that just grew from the seeds of last year that I guess we didn't take out. But it actually has tomatoes on it, which is kind of cool. And then here, we've got the snap peas. Like there's still some snap peas on this plant. Now this plant I'm just growing in this tiny little, like, I don't know, 5 inches of dirt, but look at all these snap peas that are still on here. So usually these plants are done by this time of year. Once it gets hot, the snap peas are not so happy. But I think because it's just been raining so much, and because this plant, as you can see, it's on this side of the bed, so it gets a little bit more shade than usual. These plants are really, really happy, and they're still producing, which is pretty fantastic. I've got snap peas also on the end of this bed. I've got snap peas over here. These guys are kind of finished at this point, but look over here, I have more snap peas. And these plants, like look at all the snap peas in here. I need to pick these. They're really, really, really still going and still going strong. So I'd say the cucumbers and the snap peas are my favorite parts of the garden this year. Okay, over here is peppers. This plant here, these are beautiful. This plant here is all hot peppers. So all these big green peppers, they're gonna turn red by the time I'm home from vacation, and then I dry them. And honestly, I still have these from the last time I went through this process, but I'll probably give some away to Kyle's parents and stuff like that. In here, oh, look at these. This is fantastic, these peppers. Again, I always have such good luck with peppers. I don't know why. So my grandmother, who's Italian, who had a gigantic garden in the city, who I basically learned all this gardening stuff from, she could never grow peppers like this. And sometimes I'll bring her some of my peppers, and she's like in awe that I can grow peppers like this. And it's not anything I'm doing special. It's just, for some reason, they grow amazingly here. Okay, look at all of these peppers. These are jalapenos. Oh boy, I have a lot of work to do this weekend. I'm realizing I have a lot of cooking to do. Okay, so I'm gonna harvest all of these. I've got like 4 jalapeno plants. I don't know why. I just like them. I like this plant. They're easy to grow. Look at all these. Okay, so I'm going to harvest them all, and I have some goat cheese in the house, and I'm going to make little stuffed jalapeno poppers. And the thing about these jalapenos is they're sometimes spicy, but sometimes not, and you don't really know until you're eating it. And I really, really like them, but there's like a fine line, as you can probably imagine, with like how many spicy peppers one person should really eat. If you know what I'm saying? Look at these peppers. Look at this. I'm so pleased about how these have turned out. Look at these amazing peppers. I did not know you could grow, like look at, these are like the size of the peppers from the store. I'll put my hand in here so you can really tell. Look at these. And they're so firm and so crunchy. So yeah, this is the peppers area, and I'm very happy about how the peppers have turned out. Okay, moving on to Swiss chard. Not my favorite vegetable. I don't know that I'll do this again next year. I always do it because it just grows really nicely and it's a nice color. And I rarely have issues with these plants, but it's hard to eat this much chard because it's like not my favorite thing. We'll put it in stir fries and omelets. Next year, maybe I'll just do a couple plants from seed. I bought these plants from a nursery and it came with 6 in a pack, and I just figured, yeah, I'll grow those, but I don't know. Okay, moving on, we've got zucchinis. This plant, I wasn't sure if it was really gonna do anything, but it is. I've already picked 2 gigantic zucchinis. These are yellow zucchinis. There's another one here that's gonna be picked soon, and it's finally coming around. I have been spraying this plant with soap water because this white stuff on the leaves is not great, but I think that the soapy water is actually helping. So yeah, this plant, I mean, I don't know if I'll do this again next year. It's taking up a ton of space. It's gigantic. Like, look at the size of this plant. But I've had a couple good zucchinis so far. I'm just not sure if I'm fully committed. Okay, here we've got eggplant. This is a nice plant to grow. Really, really easy. So I'm growing these skinny eggplants this year. I've already harvested a few, and we've got more growing in there. These are really good for curries. I don't really love the other like really, really big eggplants just because you gotta barbecue them or something, but these are growing really well. These are little tomato plants. This one actually came up last year. No, it came up this year from the seeds of last year. So I didn't even plant this guy, but it's growing. I haven't really been pruning it properly, as you can see, but I just wanted to see if it would even make any tomatoes, which it is. Okay, over here is asparagus. I can't tell you how many people come over here and they're like, what's that? And I say, it's asparagus. And they say, what? Asparagus looks like that? So we started this asparagus patch 3 years ago. And so when you grow asparagus, this is a perennial plant, so you don't have to replant it, but you have to not really harvest it very much for a few years. So this year we ate actually a couple little asparaguses, but we have not really been harvesting it. As you can see, oh yeah, look, like this little guy is still, this is a purple asparagus. Like these are still growing. They're still coming in, which is pretty cool. We're having some focus issues here, but, and as you can see, all these little frilly guys, these are more asparaguses. So what's happening now is as these plants get more mature, is it's spreading under the ground. And so at some point, it's going to probably take years for this to really develop. What I would love is for this entire bed to just be asparagus. So if you're going to grow asparagus, you got to put it in a place where you're not going to be like tilling or digging or anything like that. And it's good to let it grow big like this. I had to tie them back because if these little seeds drop on your other plants, they tend to rot the plant. So I tied them back, but you want to let them get big like this. And then in the winter time, you can cut them down because it just helps the roots keep growing, and it's growing under the ground. Like, look at this. This is so cool, eh? That is, can we focus? This is just such a beautiful plant. All right, here is my best ever tomato plant. This is one plant. Look how big this is. I know this is not perfectly tied, and this is not me. I know. Just don't come at me. I know. But look how well it's doing. We have so many tomatoes. These are gonna ripen when I'm on vacation, which is not the best thing. But again, like I can't not plant a garden like this. This is just like part of my DNA. I can't not do it. So we've already eaten quite a number of tomatoes off of this plant. Look how, like, guys, this plant is doing so well. Look, all these tomatoes are off of one plant. I have the main guy tied to this trellis, but I didn't know that these other producing branches were just gonna like spill out everywhere. So I've got 2 plants on this trellis here, but I think really I only need 1. And look, there's so many more flowers. So on this plant, this is more of a vining tomato plant. What I did is I've been pruning the non-producing stems. So I've left all the suckers, which I've never really done to this extent. And you can see just how much more fruit you get from it. These to prune the non-producers and leave the suckers, because then you get so many more tomatoes. So I'm pretty happy with that. Last step is the potato bed. So this doesn't look good right now, but this is just what it's like. Yes, there are some weeds in here. So these plants have already started to die off. And then what's going to happen when we come home from vacation is we're going to dig all of these plants up, and there's going to be probably like, I don't know how many potatoes, probably 50 or 60 potatoes in there under the dirt waiting to be eaten. Oh, look, there's another cucumber that I missed. This is what I'm saying. There are just so many cucumbers in here. There's another one. I could have been probably a cucumber farmer. Look at this. Pretty cool. So final last shot of the garden. This is the end of the garden tour. I'm pretty stoked about how this has turned out. Seems like all of these years of working on this have really, really, really paid off. And I just really enjoy now being out here because it's just so pleasant. So I encourage you to rethink how you're doing your gardening and make it pleasant for yourself if you can, even if it just means having a couple of little pots or little beds, because the more you enjoy it, the more you'll do it, and then the better it'll all be. And I just feel like a part of this is enjoying the process and being outside and then figuring out, what am I going to do with all these cucumbers? All right, everyone, that's the end of the garden tour. Thanks for watching. At some point, I'll do a video on my perennial garden and the flower garden tour, which is really still in its early stages. But that's it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you tried big raised beds like these? Have your cucumbers turned out just as successful as mine has? Let me know how you're doing, and thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.